his lips pressed against mine as though the world could end in that very moment. My back was against the wall of his living room, my fingers tangled in his hair, and his hands gripped my waist with a hunger I had not felt in years. My wedding ring glistened under the dim light, mocking me, reminding me that this man was not mine. He was my neighbor. The man who waved at my husband every morning. The man who shared backyard barbecues with us on weekends. And here I was, moaning softly into his mouth, betraying everything I once held sacred. The heat of his breath was intoxicating, the taste of his skin addictive. Each kiss was a dagger of guilt slicing deeper into me, but I did not stop. I could not. I had crossed a line that I knew would one day ruin me. And yet, as his lips traveled down my neck, all I could think about was how alive I felt in his arms. Before I go any further, I want to pause for just a moment. To all my subscribers, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support fuels me to keep telling these raw and unfiltered stories. And to my new and returning viewers who have not yet subscribed, I cannot wait for you to hit that button. It is the fuel and energy that keeps this channel alive. Do not forget to share your thoughts in the comments right after this hook, because your voices mean everything to me. My name is Emily. I am a 33-year-old woman living in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Georgia. To the outside world, I was living the dream. My husband, Thomas, was a stable, responsible man who worked as an accountant. He provided for me, loved me in his own calm and steady way, and never gave me reason to doubt his loyalty. We had been married for 9 years, and while life was comfortable, it was also predictable. And then there was Alex. Alex and his wife moved in next door 2 years ago. He was a 36-year-old contractor, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of rugged charm that made people turn their heads. He had the easy smile of a man who carried confidence like second skin. At first, our interactions were small and harmless. Borrowing tools, casual chats at the mailbox, waving when our trash cans were rolled back from the curb. But there was something in his eyes, something in the way he looked at me that lingered longer than it should have. It started with simple compliments. He would tell me that I looked beautiful when I wore a sundress in the yard, or that he liked the way I laughed when his dog ran into mine. I told myself it was innocent, just neighborly kindness, but deep down I felt the sparks. Sparks I tried to ignore. Thomas never noticed. He was always tired from work, his evenings spent buried in spreadsheets or passed out on the couch after dinner. He loved me, I knew that, but the passion between us had dimmed. Our kisses were quick, our conversations practical, and intimacy had become rare. So when Alex looked at me like I was the only woman in the world, I felt something stir that I had buried under routine and responsibility. One afternoon, it all changed. Thomas was at work late, and I was in the backyard pulling weeds from the garden. Alex was fixing his fence, his shirt damp with sweat, his muscles flexing with every swing of the hammer. He caught me staring, and instead of looking away, he smiled. "Need a hand with that?" he asked, walking over. Before I could protest, he was kneeling beside me, pulling weeds with strong hands. Our shoulders brushed, and electricity shot through me. I laughed nervously, trying to focus on the dirt in front of me, but when I glanced up, his eyes were locked on mine. The silence between us grew heavy. Then, without a word, he reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my face. My breath caught. My body trembled. And before I could stop myself, I leaned in. Our lips met, soft at first, then harder, desperate, like two people starved for something they had been denying too long. I pulled back quickly, my chest heaving. "We cannot do this," I whispered. But even as I said it, I knew I was lying to myself. That night, I lay in bed beside Thomas, staring at the ceiling, replaying the kiss over and over in my head. My husband snored softly beside me, unaware that I had already broken my vows with just one reckless moment. The next few days were torture. I avoided Alex, but it was impossible. He lived next door. I saw him when I grabbed the mail, when I walked the dog, when I watered the flowers. Every glance felt like a secret waiting to explode. The second time it happened, it was not an accident. Thomas had gone to visit his parents for the weekend, and I was home alone. Alex's wife was away visiting family, and the quiet of the neighborhood made everything feel too tempting. I told myself I would just borrow a ladder he had offered before. But when I knocked on his door, and he opened it with that crooked smile, I knew exactly what I was walking into. He stepped aside, letting me in. The air was thick with unspoken tension. One moment we were standing in the hallway, and the next his lips were on mine, his hands pulling me close. We stumbled into the living room, and before I could think, I was lost in him completely. The world outside disappeared. All that mattered was the way his touch set me on fire. Afterward, I sat on his couch, my clothes disheveled, my heart pounding with guilt. He leaned against the wall, watching me with a satisfied smirk, as though he had known this would happen all along. When I left his house, I could not look at my own front door the same way. It felt like crossing back into a lie, into a home built on love that I had just betrayed. From that day on, everything changed. The spark had turned into a flame, and I knew it was only a matter of time before the fire burned everything down. The morning after my first night in Alex's arms, I stood in my kitchen with a coffee mug trembling in my hands. Thomas was at the table scrolling through his phone, sipping his black coffee like he always did, and nothing about his demeanor suggested suspicion. He kissed my cheek before leaving for work, like every other day, and told me he would be home late because of an audit at the office. My heart pounded as I smiled back, forcing normalcy into my voice. But inside, guilt gnawed at me like a wild animal. The memory of Alex's touch was fresh on my skin, and as soon as Thomas left, I found myself drifting to the back window, staring across the fence to the house next door. And there he was. Alex was shirtless, mowing the lawn, and when his eyes met mine, he gave me that sly grin that made my pulse race. My knees weakened at the sight of him, and in that moment I knew this was not going to stop. What had started as one stolen kiss had become something I craved. Something I could not resist. It began subtly at first. Quick glances across the yard. Flirtatious comments slipped into casual conversations. The thrill of secrecy grew heavier every day. Soon, we were inventing reasons to see each other. I would bake cookies and bring them to his house under the pretense of being neighborly. He would offer to help me with repairs around my place, even when nothing needed fixing. Then it escalated. One afternoon, Thomas was at work as usual. Alex came over to help me move a heavy box in the garage. The box barely budged before he pinned me against the workbench, his lips claiming mine with hunger. I knew it was reckless, that at any moment a car could pull into the driveway, a neighbor could walk by. But the risk only heightened the intensity. By the time I caught my breath, I was trembling in his arms, terrified and exhilarated all at once. We were playing with fire. And I was addicted. But with every stolen moment came the weight of deception. Lying to Thomas became second nature. I invented errands, yoga classes, even volunteer meetings just to create windows of time. He trusted me completely, never once questioning my sudden bursts of busyness. His faith in me made my betrayal sting all the more, yet it did not stop me. What Alex and I had was not just physical anymore. It became emotional. He would text me late at night, telling me how he could not stop thinking about me. He said I made him feel alive again, that his marriage was nothing but routine and silence. I told myself I understood him because I felt the same. Two people trapped in comfort, searching for passion. But passion has a way of clouding judgment. One evening, Thomas invited Alex and his wife over for dinner. I panicked at the thought of sitting across from him with our spouses at the same table, pretending like nothing was happening. I tried to feign a headache, but Thomas insisted. The four of us sat in the dining room, the clink of silverware filling the space between polite conversation. Alex's wife laughed as she told a story, while Alex's eyes kept finding mine. Every glance burned, every subtle smile a reminder of what had happened between us. My palms were sweaty, my throat dry, but I forced myself to smile and play the role of the perfect wife. When the dinner was over and the neighbors left, Thomas wrapped his arm around me and said, "You know, I am really glad we have good people like them next door." The words sliced through me. Good people. I felt like a fraud sitting in my own home. But guilt was not enough to stop me. Weeks turned into months, and the affair became routine. I would slip through Alex's back door when his wife was out, and we would lose ourselves in each other until reality forced us apart. Every touch, every kiss, felt more dangerous than the last. I began to notice little things, though. Thomas would sometimes glance at me with suspicion when I came home flushed and distracted. He would ask where I had been, and I would give him answers rehearsed in my head. Most times, he seemed satisfied. But there was one night that still haunts me. He came home earlier than expected. I was fresh from Alex's house, my hair messy, my blouse buttoned hastily. Thomas looked at me, his eyes narrowing ever so slightly. "Everything okay?" he asked. I swallowed hard, nodding quickly. "Yes, just tired," I said. He did not press further, but his stare lingered. That was the first time I felt the walls of my lies beginning to crack. The most dangerous moment came one afternoon when I was in Alex's kitchen. His hands were on my waist, my lips against his neck, when suddenly the sound of a car door slamming echoed outside. My blood turned cold. It was Thomas. He had left work early. Panic surged through me as Alex shoved me toward the back door. I slipped out, darting across the yard just as Thomas walked up the driveway. My heart hammered in my chest, my body shaking with fear. I managed to compose myself before Thomas walked inside, but my hands would not stop trembling as I poured him a glass of iced tea. "Are you all right?" he asked, watching me curiously. I forced a smile. "Just hot outside," I muttered. But I knew I was unraveling. One mistake, one slip, and everything would explode. At night, I began to dream of discovery. I would wake in a sweat, imagining Thomas catching us together, his face broken with betrayal. I would tell myself it was time to stop, that I had to end it before it was too late. But then I would see Alex again, and all my resolve would vanish. He was not just my neighbor anymore. He was my secret, my obsession, my downfall in the making. And as much as I wanted to believe we could keep it hidden forever, a part of me knew the truth. Secrets do not stay buried. Lies always surface. And when they do, they destroy everything in their path. The unraveling came faster than I ever imagined. For months I had convinced myself that Thomas would never know, that I was clever enough, cautious enough, to keep my affair with Alex tucked away in the shadows. But shadows stretch, and secrets do not stay silent forever. It was a Saturday morning, warm and bright, the kind of day perfect for mowing lawns and washing cars. Thomas had been quieter than usual all week. His eyes studied me longer, his questions about where I had been lingered a little too sharply. I told myself I was imagining it, but deep down, my body sensed the shift. That morning, as I folded laundry in our bedroom, Thomas walked in holding my phone. My stomach dropped. "Emily," he said, his voice calm in a way that terrified me. "I know." The world seemed to tilt. My heart thundered in my chest as I snatched for the phone, but he pulled it back. On the screen was a message from Alex, a simple one. "Last night was incredible. I cannot wait to see you again." The room spun. My secret was no longer a secret. It was alive in Thomas's hands, staring back at me in plain words. "Thomas, please," I stammered, tears already forming in my eyes. "It was a mistake, His face twisted with rage, and for the first time in 9 years of marriage, I saw a man I did not recognize. He slammed the phone onto the dresser, the screen cracking, his chest heaving with betrayal. "A mistake," he shouted. "Do not insult me, Emily. A mistake is one night. A mistake is something you regret. This," he jabbed a finger at the shattered phone. "This is an affair. This is you choosing another man over me, over us, over everything we built." I broke down, sobbing, clutching my hands to my face. "I never wanted to hurt you," I whispered, my voice shaking. His laugh was bitter, hollow. "You did not want to hurt me? Emily, you have been sleeping with our neighbor. The man I share beers with on Sundays, the man I trusted. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? How disgusting it feels to know that every time I waved to him, every time I thanked him for helping us with the fence, you too were. He could not finish. His voice cracked with fury and heartbreak. The silence that followed was unbearable. My sobs filled the room, while Thomas stood there, his fists clenched, his face twisted with pain. Then came the words that shattered me completely. Get out. At first, I thought I misheard him. What? Pack your things, he said, his voice low, final. I will not live in this house with a liar, with a woman who let another man into our bed in spirit, even if not literally. Get out, Emily. You are not my wife anymore. I collapsed to the floor, begging. I grabbed his arm, pleading for another chance, swearing it would never happen again. But his eyes were stone, unflinching. The man who once loved me more than anything was gone, replaced by someone broken, betrayed beyond repair. Do not touch me, he snapped, yanking his arm away. Do not beg. You made your choice, and now you can live with it. The hours that followed blurred into misery. I packed a suitcase while tears blurred my vision, my hands trembling with every folded shirt. Thomas sat in the living room, his back to me, staring blankly at the wall. He did not say another word. As I carried my bag out the door, the sunlight felt cruel, too bright for the storm raging inside me. I glanced toward Alex's house, and for the first time, I did not feel desire. I felt shame. Hatred. His window blinds were shut tight, as though even he knew this was the end. Thomas did not come to the door to watch me leave. He did not need to. His silence was louder than any goodbye. In the weeks that followed, the reality of what I had done settled in. I moved into a small apartment on the edge of town, far from the comfort of the neighborhood I once called home. I avoided Alex completely. Whatever flame had once burned between us now felt like poison. He reached out a few times, but I ignored him. His name alone filled me with disgust. The truth was simple, I had destroyed my marriage. I had broken a man who trusted me, humiliated a husband who loved me, and for what? For passion that burned hot and then turned to ash in my mouth. There was no forgiveness. No reunion. No second chance. Thomas filed for divorce, and when I signed the papers, it felt like I was signing away a piece of my soul. At night, I lay awake replaying it all, the first kiss in the garden, the afternoon stolen in Alex's house, the lies I told Thomas with a smile on my face. I thought I was chasing life, passion, excitement. But all I found was ruin. And the worst part? I could not blame anyone but myself. The story of my affair is not one of redemption. It is one of consequences. A woman who had it all and threw it away for the thrill of being wanted by someone else. A neighbor. A man who was never mine to begin with. I cheated on my husband with our neighbor. And now I am caught. And the price I paid was everything.